Now, the greatest radio shows of all time.
Suspense.
The Shadow Node.
Washington calling David Harding, Counter Spy.
Classic radio theater.
The Great Gildersleeve. Fibber McGee and Molly.
Dragnet. Gunsmoke.
The Lone Ranger.
Now, step back into our time machine with your host, Wyatt Cox.
Good evening, friends of the Inner Sanctum.
An episode of the mutual program, The Mysterious Traveler. This episode of the program was from March 29th, 1949, and the name of the program, Death Has a Cold Breath.
Mutual Broadcasting System presents The Mysterious Traveler, written, produced, and directed by Robert A. Arthur and David Cogan, and starring tonight two of radio's outstanding personalities, Frank Reddick and Jan Miner, in an original play titled Death Has a Cold Breath.
This is The Mysterious Traveler, inviting you to join me on another journey into the realm of the strange and the terrifying. I hope you will enjoy the trip, and it will thrill you a little and chill you a little as we discover that death has a cold breath. Your name is Andy Marlowe. Once you were a very successful publicity agent. But this morning, as you slouch behind your big mahogany desk, you feel terrible. You're nursing a hangover. You're worrying about the IOUs you've been passing out the last few months to certain rather tough individuals who run gambling houses. You're slipping fast. Your bankroll is gone. Your girl Julie, who's just as hard and beautiful as the diamond she loves to wear, is looking for greener pastures. And you're on the skids. Unless you come up with a smart idea. You stare at your appointment pad with bleary eyes. The first name on it is Harold Farrington. Harold Farrington, the matinee idol of 20 years back. Now he's a has-been ham. You almost tell your assistant to send him away, but you change your mind and have him sent in.
Andy, old boy, you're looking splendid. I just got back from Florida. Thought I'd drop in and say hello.
Sit down, Harold, and cut out the hot air. You haven't the price of a trip to South Jersey, much less Florida, and I know it.
Always bluff and direct, Andy. That's what I like about you. Yes, it's embarrassing to admit it, but I am financially substandard at the moment.
If it's a touch, Harold, the answer is no.
I wouldn't dream of asking you for a loan, Andy. I want to retain you, to enlist your services to put me once again on the front pages. Remember 6 months ago, you dreamed up that idea of a national theater that I hoped to found? That got me nice headlines, Andy.
Yes, but you didn't get a job out of it. I'm going to be frank with you, Harold.
Of course, old man, of course.
The only way you'll ever work on Broadway again is to get a job in the street cleaning department.
Andy, but I know you're only joking. Just remind the public of me and the women will clamor to see me again. I've always had success with the women, you know.
The answer is no. I like to get paid for my services.
But you will, Andy. 6 months ago, for your last campaign, I made you sole beneficiary in my will. You'll collect when I die.
Sole beneficiary in your will. What a laugh. I think I fell for your line about having trust funds that would pay off when you died. I checked up later. You don't even own a spare suit of clothes.
I admit I exaggerated. I confess it.
Oh, that's mighty white of you.
However, this might interest you. A letter that was forwarded to me last week. Read what it says.
6 pages in a woman's handwriting, reeking with gardenia perfume. Phooey.
It's from a wealthy widow in Boston. 25 years ago, she was an admirer of mine. Her name is Abby Wilson, Mrs. Abby Wilson, and she's worth $500,000.
Harold, you bore me. So does Mrs. Abby Wilson. Now get to the point, will you?
I am, Andy. She's ill, slowly dying. And having read about my plan to start a theater which I would run in the interests of a free, untrammeled stage, she decided to make the dream possible by leaving me all her money when she dies. Now, don't you see, Andy, that will of mine is now worth something. When Mrs. Abby Wilson dies, I'm a rich man.
Pipe dreams, Harold. She's probably a crackpot in an old lady's home. And to show you what I think of your will, in which I'm sole beneficiary, let's see, it ought to be in this drawer here. Yeah, here it is. Now, watch, Harold. There's your precious will where it belongs, in the wastebasket. Now, get out of here, you old has-been. I'm busy.
Your exasperation finally has gotten the better of you, Andy. You kick Harold Farrington out. Then, feeling worse than ever, you slump in your chair again. You're still slouched there half an hour later when the telephone rings.
Hello.
Hello, darling.
Oh, hello, Julie.
My, the Wonder Boy sounds as if he had a hangover this morning.
Oh, I'm all right. Just catching a little cold, that's all.
Oh, then you'll probably be glad to have me break our date for tonight.
Break our date?
Yes. I won't be able to make it tonight, Andy. So sorry.
Why won't you be able to make it? I've had those tickets for weeks.
I'm flying out to the coast at midnight, sweetheart. Bill Wentworth is throwing a really big house party, and then a cruise on his yacht afterward.
What?
He phoned last night to invite me, and I accepted.
Julie, you can't walk out on me like this. Just because Wentworth has money.
And you have charm, Andy. But the charm's been wearing a little thin lately. And so has your bankroll. So goodbye, darling. See you around.
Julie, wait. Oh, the hard-boiled little gold diggers. I'll get another bankroll somehow. Then she'll come running back. I know Julie.
For a moment, Andy, you daydream about being rich again. But you're rudely interrupted by the sound of an argument outside and your office door opens.
Hello, Marlowe. Your office boy didn't want to let me in, but I persuaded him I had business with you.
Oh, hello, Rocky. I'm glad you dropped in.
Yeah.
I've been planning to get in touch with you. I've got a big deal in the fire.
Huh?
Yeah, we're going to get a big fee out of it.
Well, I hope you do, Andy, for your sake.
So, Rocky, I just wanted to ask you if you could just wait a few days on those IOUs. I'll really be flush.
Well, nobody ever said Rocky Smith wasn't a reasonable man. What's your idea of a few days?
Well, naturally, I don't get my fee until my client begins to see himself in the headlines, so... Well, how about 60 days, Rocky?
Huh. Because I never got past the 8th grade, Marlowe. But 60 seems to me considerably more than a few. I'll let you have 3 days. And that's all.
When he's gone, you hastily pour yourself a drink, Andy. Just then your telephone rings. You let it ring. What can it be but more bad news? Finally, the ringing gets on your nerves. You answer it.
Hello?
Hello, is this Mr. Andrew Marlowe?
Yes, this is Marlowe speaking.
Well, my name is Phelps, Mr. Marlowe. I'm calling from Boston.
Yes, Mr. Phelps.
Well, Mr. Marlowe, I'm very anxious to contact Mr. Harold Farrington. I believe he's a client of yours.
Well, you could call it that. Yeah, he was here. Left about half an hour ago.
Oh, well, can you possibly locate him for me, Mr. Marlowe? It's rather important. You see, I represent the estate of the late Mrs. Abby Wilson. I'm anxious...
Wait a minute. Did you say the estate of the late Mrs. Abby Wilson?
Well, yes, Mr. Marlowe. Mrs. Wilson died day before yesterday. And it appears that her new will leaves everything she owns to Mr. Farrington. I believe she was once an admirer of his.
Oh, yes. I know all about that, Mr. Phelps. I'll tell you, I'll locate Harold for you. You just leave it to me.
Well, I'd certainly appreciate it, Mr. Marlowe. I'd like him here for the probating of the will. Of course, as soon as the news gets out...
He goes on talking, but you're not listening, Andy. Your mind is working like lightning now. So that crazy story of Harold's about a rich widow leaving him everything was true. Like a fool, you tore up Harold's will, making you his heir. There must be some way to save the situation. Then it comes to you. The whole plan in one brilliant inspiration.
So, Mr. Marlowe, I want to stress...
Oh, Mr. Phelps, excuse me, please.
But... Yes, Mr. Marlowe?
If you let me handle all the publicity, I can keep it dignified and still make it a valuable asset to Mr. Farrington's plan.
Well, yes, I can understand that.
If if you'll see to it that nobody else hears about this until you and me and Mr. Farrington can get together.
Why, I think that can be managed, Mr. Marlowe.
Good. Then I'm going to hang up now and find Farrington. And when I do, I'll phone you. So, goodbye for now, Mr. Phelps.
The plot thickens. March 29th, 1949, The Mysterious Traveler on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox.
No offense, but are you a little fat when you look in the mirror? How would you like to learn the secrets to lose 3 to 5 pounds a week easily without joining the gym or going through any crazy diets? It's called Body Sculpt by Med Diet. For the last 2 decades, we've been helping people just like you that have pounds they want to shed. We've helped millions of people lose thousands and thousands of pounds over the years. And now it's your turn. Learn the secrets of how to lose weight with one simple phone call. You'll see an amazing difference in a matter of days. Don't believe us? We'll offer you a money-back guarantee. If you're ready to start losing weight right now, call right now to learn more about your risk-free order to Body Sculpt.
Call for your risk-free offer. 800-738-5332. 800-738-5332. 800-738-5332. That's 800-738-5332.
Thank you for tuning in to Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox here on your favorite station. Now more The Mysterious Traveler, Death Has a Cold Breath, as it was originally broadcast on Mutual, March 29th, 1949.
You hang up and snatch that torn-up will from the wastebasket. Carefully, you paste the torn will together with Scotch tape. Then you set out to find Harold Farrington. You try his rooming house first.
No, Mr. Farrington ain't in. I don't know where he is, and I don't care. Unless he comes back with the $35,000 rent he owes me. You might try Tim O'Sullivan's saloon round the corner. That's where he usually hangs out.
You hurry to the corner saloon, but the actor's not there. Desperately perspiring in your anxiety, you try all the other local saloons. At last you find him. In a corner table in the cheapest bar of them all. You can see he's almost pie-eyed.
Well, this is my good old friend Andy. Have a drink. It's not good liquor, but it's cheap. That's his great recommendation. It's cheap.
Yes, I'm sorry, Harold. I can't drink now. I've hunted you up to apologize. I was only joking this morning. I am going to put on a campaign for you. I'm going to get your name in all the papers.
Well, that's mighty fine, Andy. Calls for a celebration. Waiter, 2 more.
You sit down, Andy, controlling your impatience. You bring out the damaged will and get Harold to initial each torn section. Then you tell him about your publicity scheme for him. He's to disappear, you explain, after threatening to kill himself.
Threaten to kill myself, eh? To die, to sleep, perchance to dream. Aye, and there's the rub. For in that sleep of death, what dreams may come when we have shuffled off this mortal coil must give us pause. Shakespeare, Andy. All right, sounds like a good scheme. I'll cooperate.
Your plan is working, Andy. Working beautifully. You get Harold Farrington into the phone booth. You phone Ross of the Daily Ledger, and Farrington talks to him.
Hello, Ross. This is Harold Farrington. Just wanted to tell you I'm going to play a big role soon in The Tragedy of Man. I'm going to play the corpse. What am I talking about? I'm just trying to tell you, old boy, the time has come to ring down the curtain. Going to end the little drama of Harold Farrington. Hello. Andy, how do you like that? He said I was drunk, and he hung up.
Yes, your scheme is working beautifully. You have Harold Farrington phone all the critics and tell them he's going to kill himself. But then Farrington collapses. Desperately, you realize you have to have help. You telephone Julie. You persuade her to bring her car and meet you. You show her the will. Tell her about Mrs. Abby Wilson.
Surely, Julie, you understand. If this will is legal, I'll come at $500,000 soon.
I understand that, darling. But just how are you going to collect? I mean, suppose dear Harold decides to stay alive and then changes his will.
He won't. I mean, how long can he live drinking as he does? He's on his last legs.
You mean you'll keep him supplied with free liquor until he obligingly drinks himself to death, Andy dear?
Yes, something like that. I haven't time to tell you the details now, but somebody has to get Harold to my cabin up in the woods and keep him hidden there. That's your job, Julie. Get him there, keep him there, and don't let anybody know he is there. Darling, for both our sakes, say you'll do it.
Well, means missing Bill Wentworth's party, but... All right, I'll do it. Only, Andy, darling, this scheme of yours had better pay off.
So that's taken care of. Julie starts off for your secluded cabin in the mountains with Harold Farrington. You promise to join her the following night. The next morning, you get busy on the phone, ostensibly trying to trace Farrington. Among others, you call your old friend, the theatrical critic, Paul Milton.
Yes, Paul, I am worried about Harold Farrington. It's no gag. I know he called you yesterday and threatened to commit suicide, and I think he meant it. I'm really worried about him. Okay, I'll keep looking. See you soon, Paul. We'll have a drink together.
Paul Milton's skepticism is typical, and it's just what you want. Last of all, you call another old friend, Captain Harry Banning, in the Bureau of Missing Persons.
Oh, now, Harry, I'm not trying to drum up a story. Farrington really is missing. I want you to put out a missing persons notice on... Well, if that's the way you feel about it, I'll have to find him without any help from the police.
You hang up, and you're pleased, Andy. Very pleased. That evening, you catch the train for the little town of Ridge Gap, where your cabin is located. At the Ridge Gap station, you slip away into the darkness without being noticed. It's bitterly cold, but you walk the 2 miles to your cabin. There you find Julie and Harold Farrington having a drink in the living room. After the necessary greetings, you waste no time in getting down to business.
Well, kids, we're rolling. The editors are beginning to believe in your suicide, Harold.
Andy, I'm not so sure that the suicide is a good publicity angle. The more I think about it...
Of course it's a good angle. Isn't it, Julie?
Why, of course it is, Harold. Why, it'll get the critics to writing long, appreciative articles about you. The kinds of thing the producers all notice.
Well, maybe, but I still think...
Harold, you hired me to do the thinking. Now, listen. You write me a long letter of farewell. Understand?
A letter of farewell. Well, I could do that with the quotations from my great plays, Macbeth, Hamlet.
That's it, Harold?
Yes. I'll take the letter back to New York with me. I'll call all the critics. I'll get a couple of them to rush up here with me. Now, just before we get here, you take 1 sleeping tablet. Then pretend to be unable to wake until we've worked over you for at least half an hour. You got it?
Yes, of course. I could do that.
Look absolutely on the level. Tomorrow evening, your name will be headlines from coast to coast.
Well, if you're sure, Andy.
I'm positive. Now, sit down at my desk and start writing that suicide note. And be sure to apologize to me for using my cabin. You understand, Harold?
You leave Harold Farrington busy writing the suicide letter. You take Julie into the next room to tell her the rest of your plan.
And as soon as he finishes that letter, Harold's going to die. You understand that, don't you, Julie?
Die? Andy, you didn't say anything about that when you sent me up here with him. I'm not going to have anything to do with murder.
Harold will drink himself to death in another 6 months. What difference does it make if he goes now? It means $500,000 to us, me and you. It's perfectly safe. By now, half New York knows Harold was threatening to kill himself.
You go on talking, persuading her.
Rich.
And when you want to be, you can be very, very persuasive.
Maybe a few hours.
At last, Julie gives in to your scheme.
All right, Andy, I'll do it. But let's get it over with quickly.
You go back into the living room. Harold has finished writing his farewell to you and the world, and he's reading it aloud with great self-appreciation.
Out, brief candle. Life's but a walking shadow, a poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage, and then is heard no more. Oh, there you are, Andy. Listen, I think this is rather good.
He begins at the beginning and reads the whole letter to you. It's what you want, exactly. As he reads, you busy yourself fixing him a drink, and into the drink, you pour the contents of a small bottle. Harold Farrington finishes his letter and waits for your applause.
That's splendid, Harold. Simply terrific.
It nearly made me cry, just listening to it.
I think without undue modesty, one could say it's good theater. Ooh, is that a drink for me, Andy?
Well, it isn't for anybody else, Harold.
Thank you. I've earned this drink. Well, bottoms up.
He drinks, and in 5 minutes, it's all over. For one last instant, he stares at you accusingly, then his eyes close, and he falls forward on the desk.
He's dead. Perfect, Julie. Couldn't have worked out better.
Well, now what, Andy? Back to New York and come find him tomorrow or the next day?
No. It's all going to be settled tonight.
Tonight?
Yes. There's a very special reason why. I owe some money, but tomorrow I've got to be able to prove I can pay it from the inheritance. Now, we're going to drive to Ridge Gap, have dinner, and pretend we're on our way up here from New York. Then we arrive here, find Harold dead, and phone the sheriff. That's all there is to it.
Andy, now wait a minute.
What is it?
What time is Harold supposed to have died?
Well, sometime last night when I was in New York.
That's impossible. His body, it'll still be warm when the sheriff gets here. The sheriff will know that Harold must have died this evening.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot that. I can't wait till tomorrow. Just can't. I got it.
Unfortunately, you'll just have to wait to find out what. From March 29th, 1949, The Mysterious Traveler on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. The conclusion follows these words from your favorite radio station.
Are you in bad pain? You know what I mean. Your knees hurt. Your shoulder hurts. Your elbow and back are constantly killing you. And I'm sure you've tried every pain pill or cream available at the drugstore. Am I right? Well, here's something you haven't tried. Pain Magic. Pain Magic is not available at any drugstore. The only place you can get it is by calling the special toll-free number I'm about to give you. And to make things even better, call right now and find out about our buy one, get one free offer. We're so confident it'll work for you that we offer a free bottle with your purchase. No prescription required. Call now to learn how you can get Pain Magic and get rid of your pain. Remember, your results may vary. 800-492-8164. 800-492-8164. 800-492-8164. That's 800-492-8164.
Now on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox, the conclusion of The Mysterious Traveler, March 29th, 1949. Death has a cold breath.
What?
It's cold out. Only about 15 above zero. Yeah. We'll put Harold out on the terrace, chair and all, for half an hour. And then he'll be cold, plenty cold. It'll seem as if he died hours ago.
Swiftly, you and Julie lift the chair in which Harold Farrington sits. You carry it out on the terrace in the bitterly cold wind. There you leave Harold to cool a bit. Back in the house, you set everything straight, remove all evidence of Julie's having been there. You wait half an hour, 45 minutes. Then you carry Harold back in, chair and all, and pose him properly in front of the desk where his touching suicide note waits. The picture is perfect.
Cold enough now. Feel his forehead.
He's like ice.
Yeah. That's because he died last night, my dear. Now let's go. Have dinner at the village, make sure we're seen, then come up here and discover Harold.
Your program goes off without a hitch, Andy. In the village of Ridge Gap, you make sure witnesses see you eating. You tell the waitress you're just on your way to the cabin. Then you drive up and find poor Harold's body. In half an hour, the sheriff is there with the coroner. The sheriff looks around, listens to your story, reads the letter Harold so obligingly wrote, and nods.
Yep. Certainly is plain enough story, Mr. Marlowe. Poor fella, down on his luck, decided to end it all. You say you gave him a key to this cabin 6 months ago?
Yes, that's right, Sheriff. 6 months ago, I did a publicity campaign for him, and he used to come up here to work out our plans. I gave him a key then, and he kept it.
And poor Harold crept here to die in hiding.
That's how it goes. Well, I guess there's no use our hanging around any longer. Poor fella's stone cold. Means he died last night or this morning, I guess. Well, Doc, let's phone Williams the undertaker and get this over with.
I guess we better wait a mite before we call the undertaker, Sheriff.
Wait? What for?
There's something a bit peculiar here.
Peculiar? Well, what do you mean, Doc?
Let's feel this fellow's forehead. Mighty cold, isn't it?
That's right. Cold as ice. Shows he's been dead quite some time.
Yes, everybody knows that. It's in every detective story. His forehead was as cold as ice. Wish I had $1 for each time I've read that.
Yes, but I'm afraid you don't get my point. You see, a dead body can only cool off to the temperature of the room it's in.
Oh, well, what are you getting at?
Just this. I took the temperature of this suicide. His body temperature's only 45 degrees.
45 degrees?
That's right.
Well, how could that be, Doc? This room is 70 degrees. It ain't possible.
Andy.
Be quiet, Julie.
You're right, Sheriff. It isn't possible. Unless this suicide walked outdoors and practically froze himself. He came back in, sat down, and waited for us. And I don't think he did.
What you're saying, Doc, is, it's not suicide. It's murder. And I reckon we got the murderers right here in this room with us. Well, folks, how about it?
This is the mysterious traveler again. Dear me, it's a cold wind that blows nobody good, isn't it? Yes, Andy and Julie were persuaded to confess. It wasn't hard to get a confession, since each rushed in to blame the other. Such a clever scheme, too. Not a flaw in it. If only Andy hadn't been in such a hurry to cool the corpse off. The moral is, never rush a corpse. Let it take its own time, even if it kills you. Oh, that reminds me of next week's story, The Hot Seat. It's about a dim-witted fellow with but one thing in mind, revenge. However, his weapon was not the knife, gun, or poison. It was... Oh, you have to get off here. I'm sorry. But I'm sure we'll meet again. I take this same train every week at this same time.
You have just heard The Mysterious Traveler, a series of dramas of the strange and terrifying. The role of the Mysterious Traveler is played by Maurice Tarplin. This is Jack Farron speaking. This is the Mutual Broadcasting System.
From March 29th, 1949, The Mysterious Traveler on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, is next.
Are you suffering with arthritis or osteoporosis? Do you have diabetes? Did you know that these are just two of the hundreds of diseases that have seen improvement with Dr. Wallach's incredible longevity products? You can't get them at a health food store. The only way to get them is to call us at 800-214-0065. That's 800-214-0065. Do you have heart disease, fibromyalgia, or high blood pressure? Do you have a terrible time losing weight? Dr. Wallach can help. He was a veterinarian and cured diseases in animals. He felt that he could do the same for humans, so he became a physician. Over 50 years of research and helping people like you goes into every bottle of Dr. Wallach's amazing discoveries. Do you want to feel better? Learn how to treat the cause of your problem rather than covering up the symptoms with drugs. Call 800-214-0065. That's 800-214-0065.
Now on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox, we wrap up this hour with the fourth part of a five-part Yours Truly Johnny Dollar story, The Lamarr Matter. This was originally broadcast on March 29th, 1956.
From Hollywood, it's time now for
Johnny Dollar.
Dr. Edward Wilson, Mr. Dollar.
Oh, hello, Doctor.
Mr. Comstock of Tri-Mutual Insurance asked me to call you.
Regarding the death of Thomas Rene Lamarr.
Yes. I've just left the police department. The chief autopsy surgeon...
Yes?
There's no question about it. Thomas Lamarr was poisoned.
I see. I'd like to talk to you, Doctor. I understand you were one of Mr. Lamar's closest friends.
Yes,
and one of the beneficiaries of his will.
That's quite... Where did you learn that?
I didn't. It was a shot in the dark.
No, look here, young...
Better stick close to your office, Doctor. I'm on my way over to see you.
Tonight and every weekday night, Bob Bailey in the transcribed adventures of the man with the action-packed expense account, America's fabulous freelance insurance investigator.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar. Expense account submitted by Special Investigator Johnny Dollar to the Home Office, Universal Adjustment Bureau, Hartford, Connecticut. Assignment, the Lamarr Matter, now proven to be murder. As the facts of this case lined up, it appeared that Thomas Rene Lamarr, wealthy manufacturer of aircraft components, had only two really good friends. Lawrence Comstock, who had issued him $1.5 million worth of life insurance policies, and Dr. Edward T. Wilson, and a wonderful, lovely, charming adopted daughter, LaVon, whom I'd met during my brief vacation in La Jolla, California, whom I'd accompanied back here to South Bend, Indiana, when she received word of her father's sudden death. What little evidence I'd been able to pick up seemed to point to one Walter Marson, Lamar's personal secretary. Unknown to Lamarr, he had married Bonnie, and therefore stood to benefit from his death. Oh, why kid about it? I'd fallen for the girl, heavily. And when I found out that she was already married to a slick, smart promoter, well, let's keep personalities out of this case, especially mine. I'd told Vonnie that I'd come up and see her out at the family mansion, but I thought I'd better contact Dr. Wilson first.
Come in. Come in, Mr. Dollar. I've heard a great deal about you from Lawrence Comstock. And please, sit down.
Thanks, Doctor.
You said something over the phone that's bothered me.
I won't mince words. Apparently, you and Larry Comstock were Thomas Lamar's closest friend.
I don't think there's any question about it, my boy. And I'm sure Lawrence will verify that.
He already has. That's why I took a shot in the dark and suggested that you're a beneficiary of Lamar's will. Not his insurance. I already know that his daughter Vonnie gets that, but his will.
Well, does that shock you, or...
I suppose Larry's a beneficiary, too.
Yes.
Then either one of you might conceivably have had a motive for bringing about his death.
What? Now, just a minute, young man.
Relax, Doctor, relax. I make no bones about it. This is the roughest case I ever tried to handle. Unfortunately, I started out by getting myself emotionally involved with Bonnie Lamarr. Well, go ahead, laugh if you want to.
Hardly. She's a very wonderful girl. A bit mixed up at times, perhaps, because of...
Well, because of what?
Are you aware that, unknown to her father, Vonnie was married? Is married?
Yes, to some Walter Marson, Larry Comstock told me.
Marson was Thomas Lamar's personal secretary. Did Lawrence tell you why she married him?
I don't think he knows.
It was a few short months after Thomas Lamar's wife died. A terrible blow both to Vonnie, who was completely devoted to her foster mother, and to him. By way of quenching his sorrow, Thomas drove himself in his work 16, 18 hours a day at the plant, all his waking hours, so that he would have time to think of nothing but his work. But Vonnie had no such outlet for her emotions. Her friends, a lot of rich ne'er-do-wells, rich, worthless bums, if you like, got her interested in gambling.
Oh?
She plunged into it with a recklessness and abandon that quickly got her into debt so deeply that, well, there was only one way out.
Her father didn't know?
No. But young Marson did, and he took full advantage of it. In return for her agreement to marry him, he promised to quietly obtain the necessary funds from Thomas Lamar's investments, which he, Marson, handled. And he did.
And she married him?
Yes.
But how could she? She didn't love him.
And you must realize her emotional state at that time. She was terribly upset over the recent death of her mother, and so was her father, of course. She knew the shock it would be if he ever knew of her gambling and the tremendous debt she'd incurred. She was beside herself, ready to do anything.
So she married Marson. I could kill him.
Now, let's get one thing straight, Mr. Dollar.
Yes?
You, too, are a bit upset when you came in here. You spoke as though you might think both Lawrence Comstock and I could have motive for wanting Thomas's death.
I'm sorry, Doctor. It's
true that we are beneficiaries of his will. At least Thomas assured us we were. but only in a very minor way. Thomas was loyal to us as he was to the servants who have been so devoted to him for so long. And whatever little he has left us and them...
I'm sorry, Doctor. I guess I was just feeling hurt and angry and taking it out on anyone I could find. At least that's the way Larry Comstock put it. And he was right. Now I got a job to do. What have the police found out?
Only enough to back up my immediate suspicion that Thomas was poisoned by pyrodamarin.
Pyrodamarin?
Yes, it's a little-known drug that produces tremendous but only momentary stimulation to the heart, causes the heart to almost literally burst, and it leaves virtually no traceable residue in the system.
But you said the chief autopsy surgeon found out...
No. He found only positive indication that pyrodamarin had been used. I found the first clue to it only minutes after Thomas died. A staining of the tongue that even then was rapidly disappearing.
Can you tie this drug in with Walter Marston?
No. No, the fact that it was available at all has stumped both the police and myself. The last known source was a small island off the coast of Greece, many, many years ago. And all the tiny plants from which it could be obtained as pollen were burned by the Greek government.
But somebody, somewhere, must have had some seeds, planted them, and obtained this pollen.
Yes.
How do you suppose Mr. Lamarr took the stuff?
Well, it could have been mixed with one of the medicines in the cabinet in his bathroom, but we found no traces.
Uh-huh. Larry Comstock said you used to give him harmless sugar pills as a kind of sedative.
Yes. Thomas knew they were perfectly harmless, but he occasionally took them anyway. It was a kind of joke.
Could this pyrus stuff have been mixed with them?
We found no trace in the bottle.
But you would have been able to.
Yes. It is only in assimilation by the human body that dissipation is so complete as to make it virtually undetectable. I'm afraid I haven't been of much help to you, Mr. Dollar.
I think you have, Doctor. I think you have. It was only a hunch. But in this business, you sometimes have to depend as much on hunches as on common sense. I picked out the library nearest to the Lamarr residence to do my research.
Pyrodamarin. You're sure that is the word?
Yes. Can't you find anything on the subject?
Nothing beyond what you found in the Pharmacopoeia Index. The name of the plant from which it is derived. Blephara purpuris calandus. No common name.
Yeah, I know. Well, thanks.
Of course, the main branch of the City Library in Chicago might have something.
Sure, thanks.
Why, yes, I'm sure I can find what you're looking for. You see, I myself am quite a student of rare drugs and poisons.
Oh, what's that?
Well, after a long, dull day here at the library, I enjoy nothing more than curling up in a big chair in my little apartment and reading detective fiction.
Oh, well, where's the book?
I'll show you. But quietly, please. We must maintain the proper atmosphere for our readers.
Oh, sure.
Yes, I know the poison pyrodamarin very well. It was used in that wonderful story, The Case of the Yellow-Lipped Monster. Oh, excellent book. Thrilling. Oh, you should read it.
Yeah, well,
Pyrodamarin was new to me, so as usual, I had to find out all about it, and I did find out, too. The plant it's derived from, where it's grown, where it was grown. You see, it's been extinct now for many years.
Yeah, I understand.
Now, deadly thing, terribly deadly. But now here is the book that will tell you all about it. The title is Flora Exotica Mediterranea. That means exotic flowers of the Mediterranean. Flora Exotica Mediterranean.
What's the matter?
I don't... Oh, good heavens, it isn't here.
You sure?
But it was. I'm sure it was only yesterday. Oh, dear. Well, here, do you see? It was taken out from right here.
Well, who took it out?
I don't know.
Won't your records show?
No, I never permit any books to be taken from this section without my knowledge. Oh, never.
Afraid somebody'd consult the stuff for ulterior motives?
Oh, dear, no. It's just that the only ones who want these books are the rabid whodunit fans like myself, and, well, I like to talk to them.
Well, isn't there some other book that might give me the information I want?
Oh, not another book in the world. I know. And now, oh, tragedy, it's been stolen.
Well, this was one time a hunch didn't pay off. Quite the contrary. I'd wasted a lot of time. Expense account item 9, 520, taxi out to the Lamarr mansion. I was almost relieved to learn that Vonnie was not home.
I'm very sorry, sir, but she and Mr. Marson left shortly after noon to make the funeral arrangements.
Thank you, Harrison.
However, as you know, Miss Vonnie wished you to have full access to the house, and if you care to wait...
How is she holding up, Harrison?
Most admirably, Mr. Dollar, under the circumstances. Mr. Lamar's passing has been a terrible thing for her, for all of us.
Yes, sure, of course.
What'll happen to the house, I don't know.
Won't Miss Lamarr continue to live in it?
This morning she said no, that she'd travel for a while and then settle down somewhere else far away from this city.
Oh? And what about you, the servants?
Oh, we shall, of course, have to seek employment elsewhere.
Say, tell me, Harrison, didn't Mr. Lamarr provide for you in his will?
I do not know, sir, and I do not particularly care. His kindness and loyalty to us during his lifetime was far more important than any provision he may have made for us.
Well, I guess that takes you off the list.
Beg pardon?
Nothing. Say, tell me, has Walter Marson been around much since Mr. Lamar's death?
Yes, he's been most attentive to Miss Lamarr, which we've all appreciated. He lives here in the house, you know.
No, I didn't know. Harrison, I'd like to see his room.
Sir?
I'm going to lay my cards right on the table. I'm an insurance investigator. Here, my card.
Why, I see. Miss Vonnie hadn't so informed.
Because she didn't know.
Well, sir,
Now show me to Marston's room.
Yes. This way, please.
Do you like Walter Marson?
Yes, sir, very much. Now.
What does that mean?
I've never spoken of this to anyone else, Mr. Dollar. For years, Walter Marson was a clever, scheming, conniving young man with overpowering ambition to take over the Lamarr Corporation.
So I've heard.
I'm convinced that at one time he even tried to marry Miss Lamarr, and solely for the purpose of forcing his way into the business.
Just tried?
Well, yes, sir. However, in the past year or two, Mr. Marson has changed completely.
What makes you think so?
Because of conversations between him and Mr. Lamarr that I could not avoid overhearing from time to time. Mr. Lamarr knew what Marson was attempting and faced him with his knowledge of it. Here is his room.
Go on.
Mr. Lamarr could have made it very difficult for him in view of his record.
Prison record?
Yes, sir, for embezzlement. But instead, he gave the young man another chance.
So? Go on.
And Mr. Marson made the most of it. He changed completely. I say without reservation, sir, that Mr. Marson is as honorable a young man as I know.
Pretty sure of that, aren't you?
Yes, sir. A butler living as close to them both for so long can Pardon me, sir, but does something give you the reason to think I'm mistaken?
No. Unless perhaps it's this book I just found lying on his desk.
Book, sir?
Flora Exotica Mediterranea.
Now, here's our star to tell you about the final intriguing episode of this week's story.
Tomorrow, the wind-up, and a switch that will make your head spin. Join us, won't you? Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, starring Bob Bailey, is transcribed in Hollywood. It is produced and directed by Jack Johnstone, who also wrote tonight's story. Be sure to join us tomorrow night, same time and station, for the next exciting episode of Yours truly, Johnny Dollar. Roy Rowan speaking.
From March 29th, 1956, yours truly, Johnny Dollar, on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Thank this radio station and support their advertisers. It's their kindness and courtesy that allows us to be with you each and every time we're here on your favorite station. Also, you can find all of our programs on demand. If you miss a day, you don't have to miss a show. You can find them at iHeartRadio, Spotify, Spreaker, TuneIn, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon. Search for Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. You can also find our shows at my webpage, classicradio.stream. You can contact me there, and you can learn about building a classic radio collection of your own. Have a great day. Please tell all your friends the great radio shows are right here at this spot on the dial. Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox on your favorite radio station.